I
saying
choreographed that whole
hello.
thing. I choreographed the whole thing.
That was
It took me
brilliant.
hours.
Wait, jazz hands. Jazz hands.
You're an idiot.
Hey,
Hello,
honey.
everybody. Hi, Ona. How are
How you?
you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really good. It's been a crazy week, but yeah, I'm really good.
Oh my God. What a
Mm.
week.
Whoo. Hi, Leslie. How are
Hi,
you? Hello, everybody.
Leslie.
Let's get it cracking, yo. Let's get it cracking.
That's right. That's
Um,
right. So, all right. Okay. We want to know about each other's weeks, but let's talk about the pink elephant in the room, Miss KH,
oh yeah,
Miss
Kamala. Kamala. Well, even before
Kamala.
we get to that, I mean, that's kind of the result of
Okay, but
Joe
yes.
Biden's decision, right?
Joe,
And I was so
Joe.
proud of the Democrats in a way, and I was very proud of Joe in a way. And man, we have a lot of division in this country, and I'm not all about that, and neither is Iona. But I was really proud of the Democrats for realizing that they had to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
They had to make a change for the betterment of the country. Yes, they want to win. Sure, everybody wants to win the election. Hey, David.
What's up,
But I felt,
Ward? Brittany?
yeah, I felt that like they really did have the country's best interest at heart, and so did Joe. As heartbreaking as that decision was for him, I really believe that what he said. I believe that he's about country first, and I was just very very proud of that moment. Honestly,
I was too. And it speaks to what you and I talk a lot about with the vision is possible. Because Joe had a vision for our country and he did see it a certain way. And then circumstances are he couldn't really do the job the way he wanted to.
right, right.
On top of us, yes, that party may not win, the Democrats more than anything. He couldn't do the job, and there were others who were feeling it. And for him to go ahead and step aside made him stronger. And I'm sure that's not what he thought. And everyone thinks, I'm going to stay in the game, I'm going to keep going forward against obstacles. But sometimes we've got to let it go. And look, he's stronger than ever.
And I think ultimately the party will be whether they win the election or they don't. To me, at this point, such a statement was made by doing that, and I think, I mean, to our betterment, and it just shows the thrust of the party in going forward. That
Mm-hmm.
in fact, whether you agree or you don't agree with all of the policies, in my heart of hearts, I truly believe they are looking for the betterment of this country, not just themselves,
I believe
not just
that.
their pocketbooks, not just their agenda, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's. And I don't feel that way on the other side. And it's unfortunate that I feel like the other side would do anything to win. I mean they'll ride this into the ground to win it, regardless of us, regardless of our interests, thinking that they're
Mm-hmm.
addressing them. And
Mm-hmm.
I just feel differently. That's all. And so I was really proud of last night, and we'll see what happens. I think Kamala is more than worthy. I think she was more than worthy before. Um, so now she's just had more edge to her game and more to come up with and more experience to bring to
Right.
the table. And I think that's going to work. I don't know anybody else who could put that fill that bill.
I don't either. I totally agree with you. And
So
we will see what happens. And she's the big news. And I think some of the bigger news, just like you and I are talking, is Joe
mm, mm-hmm,
and what he did for his country
right.
that most
And
people would not.
several observations last night. One from Van Jones, who I don't always agree with, but I think he's a really good pundit on CNN. He said, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
man, we as Democrats didn't know. We didn't know how bad it was with Joe. I mean, you're hoping that it's good and it's going to go forward. And after the debate, I think they were like, oh my goodness, we really do need to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
He's not as capable as we hoped he would be, and I feel like they did the right thing in
Mm-hmm.
changing course. And everybody's asking them to do it. The other side's asking them to do it, and then when they do it, then it's like, well, why did you do it? You have delegates and people who voted for him, and now you're saying those votes don't count.
Right. You
No,
knew earlier. No, we really
no,
didn't. Really
no. I mean,
didn't.
we really hoping against hope, which is, I mean, if that's
Yeah.
a sin, then so be it. But we were going with the best option that we felt we had. And unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case. And so you make a change. Like in life, baby.
Like in
That's what
life.
we do in life.
So you can make your vision possible.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. What are you
Right?
looking for? Sponsors?
I know. No. Are they there? Are they there?
Are they coming? Did they hear me? Is that the way to do it? Is that how you
One
do this thing?
day.
Anyway,
Hey
amazing week. Your week
guys.
was good. I want to get to our guest, but your week was good.
Absolutely. Yeah, my week was really good, you guys. I had a great breakthrough this week, had a fabulous audition. I was telling Phil. I had so much fun. I had a blast. I went in to have a good time. I went in to bring something to them, and they
Mm.
felt it. And afterwards, the casting director, the producer was there, the director, she said, "Man, I wish we had more time." And I didn't really hear that because I'm still in the moment of something else, but I went to um, oh shoot, it's going to kill me. Dr. Self Tape. I went to the downtown LA office, which I've never been to. I really like that one too. And he said, "Did you hear what she said?" She said that. And she said, "I don't usually hear that." And I thought that was great because we did have a wonderful rapport and I did a darn fine job. I hope I get the
Nice.
job, but I know she remembered me. And like it is, just keep rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was a really good week. There's some
Yeah, when you're
other
doing,
stuff, and
yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
all
Well, I
good.
was just gonna say when you're doing the next thing, that's when you hear, right? When you're
That's
out, you're
right.
doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, and
That's
then
right.
that's when they go, oh, hey, you know what? We really would want you. Can you go to Budapest next week or whatever,
Right.
whatever it is.
How about you,
See what I'm
baby?
hoping
How
for
was
you.
your week?
My week was great. Real fast because we can get into it with the show because I really like our guest a lot and he's
Oh,
very
we
interesting,
love him.
super
We
super
love
talented.
him.
Anyway, I had a day that was really kind of a kick in the balls. To be honest with you, it was rough. It was like at the end of the day, I got some news that just like it was I was gutted by this news. And then at the end of the day, I really did try to think, well, one door closes, another opens, right? I'm really trying to keep that in mind because it was a very difficult moment. And sure enough, the next day, we got news that superseded our disappointment. And that as a result of the experience I had that was disappointing, created another situation, another opportunity that I would never have had I not experienced this particular moment of disappointment. It's weird. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
We don't really accept some of those challenges because we want it to go our way. I mean, this is the way it is. Right? Why wouldn't we? But sometimes you're doing certain things for other reasons than you even are consciously aware of.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened in this instance was that I was in a situation where I really wanted this particular result. But being in the situation was the thing. The result of that pitch or whatever, which is was what I was doing, wasn't what was on offer by the universe.
Mm-hmm.
What was on offer
Mm-hmm.
was another opportunity, but the pitch was the bridge to getting the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not easy to understand in the moment. So I had to really try to let go and accept what it was meaning, and it's turning out to be a much more beneficial opportunity than the one I was hoping for. So
I can't wait when you share that. Share what it
yeah,
is.
I know I'm talking in code, but you know why.
Yeah. And you know what's really cool, Phil, is something we talk about a lot is you didn't go, shit, fuck, they didn't, blah, 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 this and that didn't happen to get
Mm-hmm.
angry and
Mm-hmm.
upset and disappointed. You like, whoo, woosah. Okay, wait a minute. This is something else is going to happen. You didn't even know the phone was going to ring. It's just something else is
No,
going to happen. Let me just, because when that phone call came, if you had been in that angst of how horrible, you wouldn't have been
right,
able to receive it.
right.
And there would have been different energies. So kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah,
Kudos.
yeah,
You're having
yeah.
trouble hearing me clearly? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Let
I
me
hear you
let me
fine.
know, Sonia. Sonia says she's having a little trouble, so let me know, Sonia. Thank you, baby.
Sonia's a long way away. I mean, I think she's in Karachi or She's a long way away.
And part of it is I am further back on my phone because I'm looking at my size with Phil, so I may be kind of messing with it a little bit on how we all look. But I love you guys when you just you speak to us and let us know what's working and what
Yep.
isn't.
No, indeed. And you know what's working?
Our
Our guest.
guest.
I knew you were going to pick
Oh,
that up. You
Lao
want to get into it? You get into it.
Tizer.
You get
Okay,
into it, and then I'll.
I love this man. Lao Tizer is a brilliant pianist, composer, dear friend. My husband, Youngle Jackson, plays in his band, the Lao Tizer Band. As a matter of fact, before I give you like some information about who he is, why don't I play you a little something from his current album? Here it comes.
Very clear. Can't find your way back, no, no. Tell me one thing that I can truly give to help you find your way out. Well, you've made it very clear. Can't find your way back, no, no. If all is fair in love and war, this game you're playing just won't work out. It feels a heart that's broken. This time I'm not going. How can you tell me this is love when you can even see the truth now? It feels a heart that's broken. This time I'm not going. I'm not.
What? Now, come on. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Come on, people.
Lao friggin' Tizer, Colorado native, two Jewish hippie parents. They were into classical music, jazz, a whole bunch of different kind of music. He's married to a beautiful woman named Brittany. They've got a gorgeous little girl named Katya. And anything you want to say before I bring him on, Mr. Morris?
I just, I don't know Lau very well, but the moment I saw his band at the Baked Potato,
Woohoo!
there was something groovy, 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 man, going on. And it hits. I mean, he hits. The band hits. And he's so diverse and so well studied, so classically trained. And listen to me, when you have that classical training, you
Hmm.
can play almost anything.
Hmm.
And so it's just beautiful to see him go through the different machinations of music. And I just can't wait to talk to him about where it all comes from.
Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lao Tizer.
You guys are gonna make me blush.
That cut is dope.
Oh, thank you,
What?
thank you,
What's
thank
the name
you.
of that cut?
It's called Down, and the first single we released from the forthcoming album, which comes out in about a month now. We're almost there, August 23rd. So,
Ooh,
and
nice.
yes, Iona's husband was right in the video. So
Yo,
you can
it's
see him on
beautiful, man.
percussion and thank you, thank you. So yeah, pleasure to be with you guys, and I enjoyed listening to you recapping the week. It's certainly been the hot button topic around this house too. So
Certainly, I'm sure. How did you feel
yeah,
about that? I'll just jump right in there.
yeah. I mean, my wife and my mother-in-law both love Joe Biden. I like Joe Biden. I've always liked Joe Biden. I do agree. I told her a couple weeks ago, I'm like, after the debate, and then I saw a couple of things. I'm like, I think he's got it. I think it's time. Like, I don't know. Like, I would vote for Joe uh, still, right? But I'm like, but the people that we need to win the election, you got to have people. And I understand there's people that rightfully could be concerned. I mean, listen, age, as they say, father time is undefeated,
Mm.
and
Yeah, yeah.
he's working maybe the most stressful job on the planet
Mm-hmm.
at 81 years old. So I think that I applaud. I thought his speech last night was a rare demonstration that we see in politicians of actually putting country over party and over self,
Mm,
and
mm.
um, and and actually like giving way. And yeah, the torch needs to be passed, and the handoff has been, I think, about as good as anybody could have hoped. right? I don't think
Well
I
said.
don't even
Well
think
said.
I don't even think
Well
the
said.
party thought that like in like a matter of 12 hours is like. So, we'll see where it leads. I mean, I've been an astute follower of politics my whole life, so more so than probably some people. So I know it'll be a tough road ahead, but man, I mean, to me, the choice couldn't be clearer.
Clearer. Agreed.
If you care about democracy and maintaining what America is, then, it's not about liberal or conservative at this point. We all know what
No,
we
no.
off 3.5 years ago, like, as he said, like, and I saw Van Jones and David Axelrod and those guys on CNN last night too, and I thought, I mean, my wife she cried after she saw it because she's like that really, it does mark such a stark difference between the former guy who couldn't even concede the election and then Joe willingly stepping aside, which, I mean, come on, given the presidency of the United States, can't be easy for anybody. But I think he deserves a lot of credit for it, and let's hope that the momentum keeps rolling. It's certainly been a amazing. I guess it's 96 hours now, something like that. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
it's been amazing. It's been more than they dreamt. Anything they dreamed.
You know what the Democrats did? They ripped off the Band-Aid. They went rock.
Come on,
right?
Phil.
You know what I mean?
On.
They're like, you know what? I cannot heal with this on here.
That's right.
I've got.
That's
What
right.
are you gonna do? I'm gonna rock. And so that's what they did. And I find it laudable and respectable beyond my own party affiliation. Okay,
right.
I think that what you're saying, Lao, and we'll get to you.
It's all good.
This is all part of it.
This is
all
so important because it allows us then the freedom to have these conversations without sensing that we will be censored or that we will be shut down in any way, and that our democracy and our freedoms that we have been given will hold true. And which way is your moral compass pointing? To me, that's literally what this is all about. To me,
that's right.
I agree with you. I guess the thing that has always perplexed me is how, like, patriotism, literally the definition of patriotism as an American is standing before all things for the sanctity of people's votes and the sanctity of the people's votes being heard, and that we do call the shots in spite of, listen, politics comes with a lot of corruption. We know that.
Yep.
No matter where you are here, we're probably better than a lot, but there's probably some countries maybe that are, money is certainly a big factor in our politics. But yeah, I mean, it's like, if you care about America and what you're passing on to, I care about my daughter and what I'm belong to her. And it's like, man, democracy above everything. We can withstand whatever, like, nobody's perfect. I'm sure I won't agree. I haven't agreed with everything Biden done. I haven't agreed with everything that any president that I voted for has done. That's not what it's about. It's like, you got to maintain it so that my beautiful Katya in 16 years, when she's old enough to vote, can vote.
That's right.
And that we'll know that her vote will still matter. I mean, that's a sacred thing, and maybe it's because a lot of people like my generation and younger haven't been faced with true crises. Life has gotten quite easy if you compare it to, people who lived through Vietnam or
Civil
lived
Rights
through,
60s.
Civil Rights 60s, like my parents did. They were around for all that, lived through, if you're old enough to have lived through World War II and the Holocaust. And, we haven't faced those threats, so maybe we don't quite understand what all those people that came before us laid their lives down for,
And what's at stake? What truly is at stake?
And what's at Yeah,
well, it's not taught in history. It's not taught in our schools. If the books are burned so you can't read about it, you wouldn't know. You guys have COVID.
Right.
That was huge.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing I said. I've said to numerous people, like, I just don't understand how it's like that was only 3.5 years ago we were going through COVID, or 4 years, whatever, it's 2024, 4 years ago. But do people not remember how badly that was handled? Do you really want to hand the keys over again?
Drink
like
bleach.
Right.
Well, it's beyond that, and we'll get. The best thing about all of this is you're talking about your kids. Right. You're talking about That's what's important in all of this.
That's right.
Our children. Joe said it, passing the torch. Right. And you are an organic human being, Lao, and you look at life in that way. Music, art requires us to look at it that way. If we want to be in step with the art that we're involved with, it leads us in a way, right? So
Right.
we're trying to be as truthful and authentic, which is an overused word, as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is the state of affairs allowing us to continue that? And if it isn't, I question it. You know,
Sure.
and because
Sure.
I want my children who are much older to have a world that is beneficial and bountiful and forgiving
Right.
and understanding and accepting and you know that's what we're all about. Hopefully.
Because we're
Yeah, I
leaving
mean,
this to them.
sure. I mean, I think, my wife and I talked about it just briefly earlier today, but, so I was just saying, I hope the momentum keeps going and it feels good. And, I'm a realist. I know it'll be tough and it's going to get nasty. It's already gotten nasty. We know how it goes. That's politics in this country, maybe everywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm reminded of the Gandhi quote, and I actually don't think he was originally the one who said it, that the arc of history is long, but it bends toward justice. So,
Mm-hmm.
you got to have a long view. And yeah, we've all taken our licks in the last, 8 years, the country as a whole. And I hope we can return to a time where people are able to talk to one another, even if they don't agree, and
Please,
respect each other. I
yes.
mean, what happened to those days where I used to be able to, it was like mental arm wrestling with my buddies who don't agree, but now it's like everybody's on the verge of, it's so tribal. So we got to get away from that. It's certainly not the world I want my daughter to grow up in. I want her to be a
No.
free thinker. She might not agree with me. Maybe my daughter will have very different views. That's fine. I want us to be able to engage in that and her to be able to
Right.
engage with her peers. And that's the true gift of freedom of speech and
Well,
democracy.
yeah, and you're
And,
talking about the parenting and mentoring and guiding, and you seem to have had mentorship and guidance of a very interesting sort to bring you to the place that you exist now. Not that you are at people, right? At is a preposition. It doesn't end a sentence. I'm just saying. That's the
That's
Greg
right.
Morrison
Thank you,
coming out,
God.
right?
Thank you, God. At my phone from
That's
in.
my upbringing. Okay, that's my upbringing. We always talk on this show about where we come from to where we are, how we got to where we
Mhm.
are, and
right.
the stumbles and the beauty and the gratefulness and graciousness of it all. Where does it for Lao Tizer? First of all, your name Lao.
Hmm.
Where everything is unique about you, man. Where does this come? Where does this come from?
So yeah, my parents were hippies, right? They're both from the East Coast. My dad's from outside Philly. My mom's from Long Island. My heritage, like my great grandparents, all came here from Ukraine on my mom's side, Russia on my dad's side, in like the first decade of the 1900s. So, but my parents met in the Bay Area in the early 70s. And my mom already had two kids, my oldest sister and then my brother. And I think he was about 6 months old when they met. So they met in Berkeley. And they were already into clearly alternative things. My brother's 6 years older than me. So when I was born, they had gone further down that path. But my namesake is Lao Tzu, the Taoist philosopher.
Right, the I
Uh,
Ching. Yeah.
yeah, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, and quotes, be like water, flow around your
Mm-hmm.
obstacles. Like those
Mm-hmm.
are so definitely a cool namesake to have. I got a lot to live up to. I might need to step up my game a little bit, but and Tizer is Russian, so people have always asked me, like, as a musician, right, is it a stage name? And like, it's not. So people either expect me to be Asian, which I'm obviously not, and or expect it to be a stage name. It's also not. So
Mm.
I do have to say, I'm probably the only Lao Tizer on the planet when you think about the heritage of those two names and the likelihood of them being combined. I've still never met another Lao, even in Asia, even in China. Like, I've met people
Really?
with the last name Lao. I've never met someone with the first name Lao.
First name, yeah. It's a surname, not more than a
I
first name.
met one fan at a show in the East Coast, I want to say Connecticut or whatever, who was kind of like an older hippie guy, and he told me his son was named Lao, but I didn't meet him. And that's the closest I've ever come in all my travels. So yeah, it's a cool name, and it often gets mispronounced, but when it's pronounced correctly, I'm proud to carry it, and certainly proud to know where it comes from. Someone certainly much wiser than I. So that's a
I
good
love
thing.
that. I love that it was Lao Tzu. I'm a huge Asian philosophy fan, and I was just thinking, yeah, that's got to be where it came from.
Yeah.
So thank you for corroborating that
Yes, it
for me.
is. Yes, and then so when I was in China, people told me, I guess Lao in Chinese and Mandarin means it's kind of like old and wise. So they would
Mm.
tease me a little bit because I'm like, well, I'm not old, you know. Uh, but I'll take the wise part.
Yeah, you got some
So,
wisdom.
but they were trying to tell me it's like old in a good way. Like it's not
Right.
that not that there's
What's our thing?
not that there's old in a bad way anyway. But you know,
Vintage. Vintage.
Vintage, that's right, baby. That's the word.
right? As Bill Maher often says, and he said it a lot about Biden, right? Is like, hey man, I like old, like experience, wisdom, like has been around, has seen how things work, like
Proven,
that's valuable for sure.
Experience.
So just the fact that I got that name tells you a little bit about who my parents are and
Right.
where they came from. There's a lot more there, which we certainly can cover. but
Please, please, please
But we'll start there.
continue. Because I know.
So my dad is what in in more like slang vernacular people would probably refer to as a cult leader, right? So I grew up in a spiritual community of which my dad was the leader, and my mom was also one of the leaders. And like most spiritual communities, it has its benefits and its strangenesses. I don't know if that's a word, but oddities, maybe I should say. Oddities. There you go. Yeah. I'll trademark that. So definitely a very unique upbringing. I mean, I was super sheltered from what my dad referred to as the world, right? Which is actually where we're all operating in here, right? Like I live in Los Angeles. We all live in Los Angeles, right? There's a lot of people I was, as a kid, I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, but I was also super sheltered. They had their own school. So I went to, and all the teachers were his students or followers. So it was very sheltered. So there's a lot of beautiful things that came out of that, which is like, they loved the arts. They were very, very strong about encouraging that. I had not just piano, which actually took them longer to get me piano lessons, but visual arts. Like I took painting. I was quite a good, actually, like pen and ink drawer. I took oil painting and acrylic painting, and so they were really good about nurturing that. And my dad definitely taught us discipline. So a big part of his whole path to like teaching his students what he calls transformation, like spiritual transformation, was through running. And so I had to run since I was 5 years old, and I mean, like 6 days a week, get up. I grew up in Colorado, get up before school at 4:45 in the morning in the winter and go run intervals at the track. And, Sundays we'd run 7 miles or 8 miles. Some days we'd do intervals. I ran 5 days a week. We had Mondays off. So that right there taught us great discipline. And the other thing I would say, they also did a great job of teaching me that you have to work for everything. So when I wanted my first keyboard, this is how I ended up in a career in music, actually. So I'd started piano lessons just before I turned 9. And
that's early.
It is, although some of the great pianists, man, Herbie and Chick and those guys start 3. Yeah. The drummer in my band, who Iona of course knows well, and I guess Phil, you also saw Baked Potato, Gene Coy. Gene was like playing drums when he was like 18 months old. Like he's just a natural. You can kind of see it when you see him play. Like you're like, okay, that makes sense. Like he's just got the gift, right? So I started lessons, and like most pianists, classical and that kind of stuff. But when as I started to get older, I used to love to go to the music store and play the keyboards because they had other sounds. And I was a kid. I was like, well, that's cool. You can play I can sound like a guitar, kind of. They weren't that great, and back in those. When I look back, I'm like, it didn't really sound like
Moog synthesizers, yeah.
Yeah, this was more like, I guess, in the area where it had moved over to digital, but it was the early digital that wasn't that great. So I don't know if you remember Yamaha Clavinovas. They were really common.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So they'd have harpsichord and electric pianos and, the drum machine you could kind of play along, whatever. So I loved all that. So when my parents said, okay, we'll loan you the money. You have to pay us back like 2/3 of it. So to pay them back, I started performing shows. In my hometown of Boulder, Colorado, there's a downtown. Have either of you been to Boulder?
I was going to move there. I love Colorado. I love it.
Oh, yeah. It's a great place, man. And it's really evolved since I was a kid. So the Pearl Street Mall in downtown Boulder always had this whole scene on weekend nights of like buskers and performers. There'd be like the Acrobats. I don't even know where the acrobats were from. They're Caribbean maybe, but they were like a family did acrobats. There was jugglers. There's all kinds of stuff. There's musicians. So that's how I started performing. I had to pay them back, and then people. I was 14, and my sister would help me load my gear in her little tiny Toyota Tercel. It was like a 1980 Toyota Tercel. We'd lug my keyboard and a keyboard amp, and I'd go play. And then people asked me to make an album, so I made my first cassette. This is 1993.
Wow.
And that's it. Just kind of the road to music just laid itself out to me. I mean, I knew I was talented, but a lot of people, when as a kid, told me I should be a lawyer or a psychiatrist. I guess because I like to argue and often thought I was right.
Yeah.
So, which apparently old habits might die hard. You can ask my wife.
It's great you're with an Aries because they like that too.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it just kind of laid itself out. So by the time I graduated high school, I was already working as a professional musician, and I never even applied to college. It was like that was it. I already knew what I was going to do.
I read that in your bio, and that resonated with me because Iona will tell you I'm like that. I'm an experienced person. I've done classes, certainly. I've trained with a lot of people,
Sure.
especially with martial arts and stuff like that. But I'm an actuality human. I need to walk and talk it. I need to be in the space that I'm talking about doing and being, as opposed to continually training and training and training and training for it. You know, I need to be in it and be around people that help me sharpen my skills. If I fall in the moment, it's way better than in class, because in class you have this filter of safety. You know, when you're doing a play or when you're in a professional arena, you don't have that filter. You have to bring it, and if you don't bring it, there's a certain consequence, and that teaches you something. And when you do bring it, there's another consequence, and that teaches you something. Where in class, you're only learning the posits of the class itself, the teacher, the other students. When you're in a professional arena, you're like trial by fire, you know, and that seems like your lane.
Totally. Like, I think it even says in the bio, because I did an interview with the writer and then he settled on that. I think I said something about getting my butt kicked on the bandstand by musicians who are better than me. You know, I mean,
right. Yeah.
That, I mean, if you're on stage with really great people, and it's, you know, we're in instrumental music at that time, especially. I was only instrumental until the last couple albums where we started incorporating vocal stuff too. But yeah, I mean, so if someone takes a solo, they're really great. And then it's your turn. Well, you better bring it, right? I mean, what else can you say?
Yes.
Like, you either bring it or embarrass yourself, and I'm sure I've done both. You know,
you learn. That's how you learn.
Before we got on, you said, "Where's Jackie?" Right? You said, "Where's Jackie?" And I came on. And but to speak to that, when I did Seinfeld, that's exactly how they were. You bring it, we love you. You don't bring it, next. And a lot of actors walked out of there with hurt feelings because these people were at the top of their game, meaning the Seinfeld crew. They had been, you know, Jason Alexander had been on Broadway. He'd done features. He was well studied. Michael Richards had been well studied. He was a comedic genius. Larry David, of course, and Julia, of course, had come from Saturday Night Live. So they were all well-traveled thespians and hardcore veterans. And so you had to come in there and be at the top of your game. When you were gold. When you weren't, good.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah. And the people who were the ones who, I'm sure, who, because they weaved so many. I'm a Seinfeld nut, so, you know.
Oh yeah, you are.
That's why I say, "Where's Jackie?" I mean, I still watch it, but yeah, so the people who are really great. There was also a lot of actors who they wove in different roles over the seasons, like, because they were so great, whatever they would bring them back.
Exactly.
Like, they were on this series before, but it wasn't that character. And of course, Jackie Childs was like, you know, mainstay, and you killed it.
Thank you.
And of course, we all have to remember the time, right? Because it was Johnny Cochran, right? That was
the OJ trial, yeah.
That's right, yeah. So,
Lao, I just want to mention this. There's a question here from Francis Cheever. Have you traveled to Russia or Ukraine? Or if yes, is there a cultural influence in your art?
So I would say so. Yes, I have been to Russia, although only mostly to far eastern Russia, which a lot of people don't even like think of quite the same, right? Like, so we played shows in Vladivostok and in Nahodka, and I've been. The very first time I was in Russia, we were in transit to the Dubai Jazz Festival. This is in 2010, and we were laid out of LA, and we are flying on what Aeroflot Airlines. Have either of you ever flown Aeroflot? It's like the holdover airline from the Soviet Union days, right? And we're flying on an old DC-10, man. They were still flying DC-10s. This is 2010. I'm almost positive it was a DC-10, and we were laid out of LA. And we had to connect through Moscow, through the crappy Moscow airport on our way to Dubai. And we left late, and my buddies were like, man, like this is February, right? And they're like, man, are we gonna be okay? And I'm like, they always build in cushion time. We're only an hour and 15 minutes late taking off. It's a long flight. I'm sure we'll be okay. And we're flying in, right? And I'm like watching the clock. I'm like, man, I don't know. Like I think we're gonna, like we might have a problem. And I remember the drummer at the time. I don't know if you know him. Iona Raul Pineda, Cuban drummer.
No.
Munyanga. He was sitting. I remember right in front of me or right behind me. He goes, and he's got Cuban accent. He goes, "Oh, bro, we don't want to get stuck here." Like we're flying over the frozen tundra coming into Moscow. Sure enough, you get out, and you have to go through like passport control. We missed our flight, but we don't have visas to enter the country.
Oh.
So they literally walked us through this like downstairs, like back hall out onto the tarmac into a bus that took us to a transit hotel. So it's freezing cold. None of us have clothes for that. We're ready for Dubai, right? Like we're not ready. And it's like full on February weather in Moscow, snowy, icy, the whole thing. They take us to the transit hotel and send us up to the third floor, and there's a guard there. We're not technically in the country because we don't have visas. We can't enter Russia. So we're literally stuck in our rooms under like house arrest overnight until we could catch our flight to Dubai the next morning, the next flight. And you could order food to your room, like some like beef stroganoff. It felt like kind of like prison food a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't know if
You're in a
like
gulag.
in prison. But
Yeah.
and we got and Raul came over and we got some vodka. We were like, oh, I mean, what else? We couldn't even go to the bar in the lobby because you're not
supposed
really,
to be there.
No, you're just in transit.
Wow.
So those are my two Russia experiences. Now on the far east, that was a couple of years later, and we actually played shows, and we had that was partially organized by the U.S. consulate there, and this was thankfully before relations really took a turn for the South. I think it was 2012, and our driver of the van was like an old Russian, like Soviet sniper. He was like Tom Selleck, like 6'6", barrel-chested dude, like looks like he should be out there wrestling bears. And he told us some stories. I mean, he's a very quiet guy, but he told us some stories. Like that's what he likes to. He goes bear hunting and whatever. But he was like,
Wow.
you would not want to mess with this guy. So the culture over there was really cool and very separate from Moscow. Like my experience in Moscow, I've heard it from a lot of other people, is that they're pretty cold. Like, but in the Far East, like. It's so, I mean, you're talking an 8.5 hour flight from Moscow. Like it's way over there. Like you're 2 hours from Japan, not even 2 hours from Japan. So you're all the way on the Pacific Ocean. When we went to Nahodka, we went to the bay and I'm sitting there. I'm like, this is the other side of the Pacific Ocean. And we don't really think of it that way because it's north, right? You think of the Pacific, you think of Hawaii or Japan or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a very long roundabout answer to the question. I would say, yes, the culture of piano. So my great grandfather is the only one in my family that actually was musical, but he was Pop Leon. He was a Russian piano teacher and then taught here. So there's a certainly a lot of amazing lineage of that in classical music and the discipline and whatever. So I would say, yeah, that carries through a bit, but beyond that, I'm Jewish by heritage, but wasn't raised Jewish at all. As we covered, my parents were into, much more like, Zen, Buddhist, Sufism, a bit of Christianity. So I was, I never even owned a menorah till my wife got one. So
what was the thrust of your father's theology or philosophy or
It's kind of a hybrid of things, right? So like we would say the Lord's Prayer, before meals and whatever, but a lot of it was much more Zen, Buddhist, very
Asian,
a
Eastern
lot of focus on
philosophy.
meditation, and then he got more and more into Sufism, which I I don't know that I'm qualified to speak on it on like in great detail, but I would say that's a little bit harder line, I think. And he,
Mm.
as I got older, my dad got a little more harder line, like where it was really like uh, he had ultimate control over people's lives, like every aspect of their lives. And that's a tricky thing for anybody. And so there's always this balance. I mean, as it pertains to me, people always kind of ask me like, how'd you come out well adjusted? I'm like, I don't know. Music was probably a big part of it. I always wrote my own music and had this as like an outlet of painless therapy.
Mm.
Um, whereas some of the other kids in the cult and even my sister didn't have quite those same outlets. So I think that probably helped shield me a bit. And I was also his son, so I probably had, I'm sure he wanted to
But do
groom
you do
me.
you think the music gave you a perspective that you wouldn't have had otherwise? It's another language, it's another sense of
100%.
it. I
100%.
did a I
Yeah.
did a workshop, and I only did it as well, called Playground. And
Okay.
this was
Mm.
not a cult, but it was at a time where it could have been viewed as that, because it was a
Mm-hmm.
seminar that
Mm-hmm.
you committed a great deal of time to, and assisting and recruiting was a big part of it. But the thrust was basically Asian philosophy and the understanding of different ways of thinking and different belief systems, as opposed to anything that we had to follow, right? There
Mm-hmm.
was no human that was dictating our
Mm-mm.
understanding. There was a guy who created this. Paul Larson had created the system, but it was much more geared towards humanistic involvement and with an Asian bent.
Right.
So I mention that only because that helped me immeasurably in my life to
Mm.
see things beyond where I lived. And we lived in Beverly Hills, and there was a lot of
Okay.
opulence,
Right.
a lot of wealth, but there was a lot of problems as well. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people had drug problems, alcohol problems, divorce
Yeah.
problems. Kids were fucked up. It wasn't good. You would think that in those environments, people would have everything. They didn't. So I
Mm.
realized it wasn't about that. And going to Playground and having different influences helped me understand the world beyond my world, and
Right.
that
And
really helped me as,
helping,
I think, a human being.
sorry, Phil, and helping us
No,
to
no.
travel. Dad was a a big one about this. This is a beautiful home. We have a lot of things, but you're not better than anyone else. Phil
Right.
and Dad still went down to the hood and got their barber shop.
Haircut, yeah.
We got a barbecue. I got my hair done. So and we had uncles and play aunts and cousins who were white, Jewish, black, Asian,
Right.
all ethnicities, so that we knew we're part of a community called
Sure.
the world.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I think that's, I've often pondered this throughout my life, and it's the only way I ever could figure out to explain it, how a child of, say, a billionaire, right? Someone who's super successful, who has everything, never wanted for anything, can still end up being depressed or being an addict or being manic or whatever, or just struggling in life. And how someone who grows up with nothing, who maybe doesn't even know their parents, who's a foster child, can overachieve and become a billionaire or an amazing artist or athlete or whatever themselves. And I think the only way to explain that is for our own realities, right? Each of our own realities, our struggles have to be equally difficult for ourselves.
Mm.
Otherwise, how else could you say, like, a kid who grows up in Beverly Hills who has everything but can't
Hmm.
find meaning for themselves, right? And the
Absolutely.
kid who grows up with nothing does find it and has just like the biggest heart and whatever, like, so I guess part of that is also like it's learning that you're part of a community and what the world is, and
Exactly.
also
Getting out of
under
yourself.
and understanding that you have to be like that we all have to find value and purpose in our lives. And so maybe being the child of someone who's super successful and powerful or whatever, who you want for nothing materially, but if they didn't show them the way to to find meaning for themselves, their life is actually no easier than the kid who you would think
Right.
life should be
Right.
much harder, you know.
They're as lost. Yes, they're as lost.
Right.
Yes.
And
Right.
it's about
I
the money does not solve or help everything, right?
no.
And
No.
there's something to say about struggling to find
Right.
yourself and earning something. So many actors who are stars and they have everything, and the kids have everything, but the kids don't have themselves. So they walk into a world where they are allotted not for who they are, but for
Right.
their parents. And so they
Right.
haven't grown up to find out who am I? What have I attained so that I can get this on my own, whether it's that or not, but just who
Right.
they are. And that is a problem, I think, just what you're saying with a lot of kids who have money or grow up with having so much. What they have are the trappings. But Phil and I could speak to this about a lot of kids we went to school with. Sometimes during the weekend on Fridays, kids would go home and there'd be a note. Hey, sweetie, here's 200, $300. We've gone to the desert, have a good time. Well, what do you think the kid's going to do at 12, 14,
Right.
16 at home by themselves, 200, $300?
Have a party.
Exactly. They're having a party. They're drinking. They're doing all-
Maybe get into trouble, right? Of course. Yeah.
And you're missing that love. I remember, Phil,
Yeah,
there was some place called the swim gym where we went to Beverly Hills High School, and the swim gym was where they played basketball and also swam. It was a really cool place, and there was a phone booth out there. Dad came to pick us up one day from school, and this kid is like, "You better effing come pick me up." They're speaking to their mom or dad. "You better, I want you to." And we got in the car, and Dad didn't move. We were like, "What's going on?" And he's just sitting there. He's listening. He goes, "Please call me and ask me to come and pick you up like that. And don't worry, I'll be here forthwith. I'll be here right away."
Forthwith, I like
and
that.
that's a kid. Well, and that's a kid who didn't learn respect for their parents because they hadn't learned respect for themselves, and their parents haven't given them
Right.
that love. And
Right.
that's what it sounds like all of us at least got.
I'm as a young father now myself, right? So we have a 2.5-year-old, like, and we've talked about it a bunch, like, and Brittany and I were actually having this discussion on the way to the show in San Diego last weekend, like nature versus nurture. How much of what we're taught in society, right? Like, does a human automatically know that killing another human is bad, or that lying is bad, or are those social constructs that we're taught? Because we also have there is the like animal side of who we are and instinct to survive and whatever. I can only say, like, watching our daughter, like, we've been teaching her since she started to talk to ask nicely, and we're still doing it. She does it sometimes, but she'll just demand something. I go, "How do you ask for that?" Like, and she always says it, "Please, Daddy, strawberries," or whatever it is she wants. But we're still at 9 months into it. We're still, so how long does it take before that is reflexive, right? And then when you think about it on a much broader scale of like raising good people, being a good parent, and what we all have to do to be good members of society, like, how long does that process take? I think it's, Phil, you said you have older children, so maybe you can shed some light. But I found it very interesting. She's sweet as pie and loving, but she's still learning to like teaching manners. Man, I guess that takes years. I'm
Well,
assuming.
But we all come with a different baseline, right?
Sure.
Each one of us come with a different, I will say, moral compass baseline.
Right.
I remember vividly when I was a youngster, we were making fun of this young man because he wore a Cub Scout hat to school every single day. Second grade,
Right.
he was young. We making
Right.
fun of him, and I certainly was one of those ones that was making fun of this kid. One day he takes his cap off and he had ringworm. That's why he wore the cap.
Oh wow. Right.
And I swore to myself that moment I would never be that kid again.
Right.
So those other kids didn't give a shit. They didn't care. You know what I mean? They made
Right.
more fun of him. But it
Right.
struck me differently. It hurt my heart. And I
Right.
think that we all come with a certain baseline. And then it's up to our mentors, our teachers, our parents, our influences around us to fill in the blanks, to give us the experiences that then allow us the ability to make decisions that you're talking about, to be courteous. I remember
Right.
one of my kids, what I would do with my children, the worst thing for them was if I was disappointed in them.
Mm.
It wasn't me yelling at them. It wasn't me snatching them. It wasn't me spanking them. None of that. It was when I was not you're not making me proud.
Right.
I know you're lying. I know you're lying to me,
Right.
and I'm very
Right.
disappointed in you. I could
Right.
feel in their gut that that hurt them,
Right.
and so that showed me that they were good kids.
Right.
That showed me that innately, that's not who they want to be.
Right.
Now you might want to go there because you want to get along, go along with your friends, and they're doing all kind of crazy, wild stuff. But who are you in it?
Right.
That comes from
Right.
where you're born, how you're born, and who your influences are.
Right.
So yeah, it is a bit of both in a way, and I think we have to help nurture what they naturally come into the world with, and we have to be honest about listening and hearing them and feeling
Right.
them, allowing
Right.
them to be who they are, as opposed to trying to guide them into the place we want them to go, because that's what we want.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think as it relates to us, I mean, one thing I thought about when my daughter was born, I was actually talking to my niece about this, and my brother had his daughters when he was very young, so we're like kind of on the opposite spectrum. Like my niece Hannah was born when he was 22. Katya was born when I was 43, right? So like he was an empty nester by the time I had my first kid, just about, right? And I was saying, I'm like, I want her to be independent and free thinking. Like, I'm not trying to impose my beliefs, other than like being good, being honest, being polite. But I want her to think for herself, and I want to teach her how to like be an independent thinker and how to have that exchange of ideas and to stand up. And thankfully, she has a very strong personality and is definitely very good at like letting you know what's cool with her and what's not. And especially as a father of a daughter, that's a good
Strength is
thing,
better.
Yes,
Strength is better. I
especially
got one of them.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
I
So
got
yeah,
one of them. No, you're good for a good ride. It might be tough on your wife when she becomes a teenager.
Right.
Not so much on you, but it'll be hard on her
Right.
when she's a teenager. But yeah, man, it just sounds like, I want to get back to who Lao is and the music that he performs. People, when you listen to this music, you're going to hear exactly what he's saying. His music is a reflection of who he is.
I
All that
hope
you're
so.
hearing about his life,
It really
I've
is,
listened
Lao.
to it. I'm telling you, I'm saying this is a distillation of. I mean, that's what great art is, right? It's the reflection of ourselves as we have been influenced and how we express it.
Right.
And
And kind of the
done,
pure
friend.
form of exploration or expression of that, I should say, because trying to put things into words or to be diplomatic or whatever, in exchanging ideas, whereas it's like, that's why I say, like, I really think that one of the reasons why I had it maybe a little easier than even a couple of my siblings dealing with my dad and our rather unusual upbringing, to put it nicely. I had music, and it literally was painless therapy. Like, I would go and improvise and write something, and
You get it
I
all
could feel
out.
that energy getting out of me. I'm sure
Yes.
you both, we're all creators, so I'm sure you guys
Yes.
can relate to that too. And that doesn't mean some of what comes out was ever meant to be heard by the public. Like, I write lots of ideas that I never turn into songs for the band to perform and record. They're just a moment in time for me to express what I'm feeling, whether it be down or lonely or sad or frustrated or whatever it is, or just melancholic, or not even knowing what the emotion is, just knowing like there's something that's there to come out. And I think that's, I think when art is done that way, like, I would say, listen, there's always someone, like, as a musician, there's always someone better. There's always a better technical pianist, right? There's always someone who can play faster, play more notes, better time, more chops, whatever. But nobody can be a better you than you, because your voice is unique to yourself.
I'm sorry,
And that,
Lao. Would you say
yeah,
that again?
there's always someone better, right? At whatever it is you do, but nobody can be a better you. And that I've always tried to be like, stay true to my voice. Like, nobody can write a better song for me than me, because it's me, right? And I think that's and I think because we all know, as right, we're all in creative and competitive fields, you can always compare yourself to someone else, you know what I mean? But they're doing the same thing. The grass is always greener, right? Whereas it's like, just stay true to, like, if you can just be you, be the best version of you, and know that you have a voice that matters, then that is, then
Competition went
that
away
is
from
your
me.
gift.
You're absolutely right. You are. Iona, can I say this story? I've told this story before. I'm going to tell it
Please,
again.
please.
So, talking about comparison, competition.
Right.
Of course, there's a high level we're working at. There's a lot of people,
Right.
and it's a small pie, and we all want a piece of that pie. So I'm actually working. I'm doing a show. I'm doing a series. I'm doing actually the new Mission Impossible in Australia. My wife and I
Okay.
go. I'm working in this amazing.
Right.
Our father made it famous. Now I'm working on this show. It's incredible. I go to the movies. We see the trailer for the movie Glory with Denzel Washington.
Oh
And I
yeah.
see this trailer, and I'm like, oh, he's good. Oh man.
Right.
And we walk out of the theater. I don't know what the movie was we saw. All I know is that I saw that trailer. And I walk out and I see this movie poster and it's Glory. And I'm like, oh. My wife's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I just say like 3 words, Glory, Denzel Washington. It's just so guttural. And she goes, would you please let that man have his career and you have yours?
Right. Yeah.
And right then, it tightened my wig, man. And I was like,
Right.
yes, I
Right.
cannot be Denzel Washington, but Denzel Washington can't be me either.
Right.
So
right.
all I need to put my mind on is being the best me I can be and love up on everybody.
Right.
And it's, not that I was hating on Denzel. I was just jealous. It was
Yeah,
professional
of
jealousy.
course. We all have it. I mean, I see bands. I'm like, damn, they're touring a lot. Like, I want to be touring that much, or whatever it is. And by the way, the other thing also that we often don't know. Of course, I look at it mostly in the musical lens. They're looking at you. I have people come up to me all the time and like, man, you're
Yes.
killing it out there, and I'm sitting over
Yes.
here going like, we need to be doing more. We need bigger. We need better. We need, And they're like, dude, you're everywhere, and I'm like, so
Well
that's
said,
why
yes.
I think it's good
Yeah.
to just, the best way is just stay within yourself and be the best
Well,
version of you, and also listen to what other people like. That's the beauty of art, man. Unlike sports, there literally is the fastest man in the world, but in music there isn't the best.
there's no scoreboard.
Because no, there's no scoreboard, and the way that it connects with people, like I could write a song that might really touch somebody and then be like, man, I could tell them this song by Herbie really touched me, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't connect with me. It's different. It's not like in sports there is better,
Right.
But in art there's not. There's letting your voice shine and just working on that and growing in that and learning and all that. I mean, of course, and just like in acting or directing or whatever, right? There is the beauty of music is that the learning never stops. Munyango is a great example of that. I mean, Munyango's had an amazing career. He's played with everybody, but he's so passionate about the music and every gig and giving
Yes.
it his all and just growing. And that's what I've learned in my career is like, that's true professionalism. Like, it's so easy to think of. There's another great quote, which has always stayed with me. I saw it on a bar like on a chalkboard in a bar in Whittier, like 20 years ago. I went with some friends to get some lunch, and it's whatever the bartender had written there that day, excuse me. And it's that success isn't a destination; it's the journey, right? I think we, as people, especially in social media age where we're like, everybody is so connected, we can all see what everybody's doing. It's easy to be jealous. It's easy to be competitive. But like, the question is, if you ask Sting, when did you know you were successful, or what is success? He might say, man, I'm still working at it, right? Like, it's so easy to think there's a point you're going to get to. If I win a Grammy, then I'm going to be successful, right? And then, but I would presume if you really love what you do, you win a Grammy, it's like, okay, what's next, right? It's continuing that journey. And instead of thinking there's a finite end to what, like, okay, because if you get there and you stop learning, well, then it's probably time to do something else, right?
It's not
which
an,
is
a,
okay.
a, an arrive,
okay
don't
too.
arrive anywhere. It's not something you
I
arrive
think-
at, right?
No.
Say it again.
No.
It's
that,
not
no,
something.
It's not a place to arrive.
No.
No. It's like
Constantly
just staying true
growing.
Right, because the question is, are you doing your art or music? I mean, yes, of course there are realities. We all have to make a living. We all have to have careers. I've got a
Yes,
family.
there's a
I've got a
structure.
wife. I've
Yes,
got a daughter.
there's a
Right, there
framework.
is some structure. But like, I don't ever want to retire. I'm sure I'll want
That's
to
right.
tour when I'm 90 too. I just may not want to have to do it. Like I would, of course, like to the point where we'd be like, I want to take 6 months off and go chill on the beach in Hawaii or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm going to lose the drive, because that experience, the joy of the performance in the moment, is what feeds my soul.
Hmm.
And
There's a question I want to put out here, and for you,
Yes,
Lau,
That's a
and
great
the rest of-
question. Cole, I saw this question. It's a great one.
go, Phil. Read it.
Oh, this is our buddy Cool Soul. Cole says,
Okay.
why do you think music is the only universal language we as humans can collectively understand?
Wow. I mean, that's a
What a great
deep one.
question.
I would say a few things.
So good, Coach.
Literally, sonic vibration speaks
Nice!
to, like, right? It speaks to the
Love
human body,
that.
right?
Yes.
We
It
start-
hits
like,
us. It
it's-
hits us.
Right. It's been, for example, if you know, okay, Western music is based on like A440, right? Right? Like the scale of Western music, I'm like, but how did they know that was It's like literally the mathematics of it and the vibrations of it actually interact with us. So, and especially if you take away lyrics from music, right? Because lyrics automatically put meaning to something, whereas just the vibration of it itself, like, and it is one of the gifts. I've said it many times. Iona's heard me say it. I'm sure it shows. Like, I think it's one of the gifts, especially in the corner of music that we do, being jazz-ish, right? It's got a lot of flavors to it, but it's jazz-ish. People can relate from anywhere. It bridges all those boundaries that we put up. Religion, ethnicity, geography, politics, like everybody loves music. And when it's done well, everybody can connect with it. And what that song might mean to someone in the moment, you could play a concert for 200 people, and what the song you just played might move different people in different ways because they're going through their own experience at that time in their own lives. Maybe there's one person might come and say, man, like I just needed this as a getaway from the stress of my life. And someone else is like on vacation. They're like, man, you made whatever. Like, but we still connect with it. And it's really one of the gifts to be able
That
to
is
spread,
crazy good.
especially in this day and age where there's
Yes.
We
so
need it
much-
so badly.
Yes.
so much division, like that it reminds people that like community, like a bunch of people in a room enjoying a show. And by the way, and I say this to audiences often, what you give to us, we will give back to you tenfold. Like there are the shows where the audience is a little polite or whatever. And yeah, we still play for each other and play for them. But the synergy, the energetic synergy in the room is not the same as when it's like people are just raucous and there's just this magic, and like we feed off that, and so we dig even deeper, and it's like we're giving to each other, they're giving to us, we're giving to them, we're all like humans.
It's an
enjoying what we're
exchange.
supposed to. It's an exchange. It's what it's kind of, in a lot of ways, it's to me the same thing as what a creative moment of inspiration is. I don't remember when I saw this or who told me. Back in like, I was young, like 18, there was, I don't know if it was like a comic or like an illustration in a book or in the paper about what songwriters feel, right? And it's like when you really get inspired, it's like the antenna just connects. And like when you're not, it's not quite connected. And I don't even think you can take credit for that. That's like the magic that's, you're just tapping the energy that's
coming
floating
in.
around out there.
Yeah.
What you can take credit for is the work and time and skill that you put in developing the ability to be able to translate that,
to filter that,
inspiration,
yes.
right, and then and craft that song. But the initial moment of inspiration is just kind of, it happens. And I guess the truly great people figure out how to tap into that more often than others, right? Whether that's
Michael
living through
Jackson, this is an
patient-
urban legend. Michael Jackson
Mhm.
said that he was afraid to sleep.
Mm.
Afraid to sleep. Because he thought while he was sleeping, God would give Prince all the good songs. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you.
I mean-
gotta have another. Come on,
Yeah.
it was Mike.
That's
so, you never
hilarious.
know. But I do want to talk
Right.
about real quick because, dude, it's 7:05, Iona.
Okay.
Anyway,
I know.
what,
okay.
what are you gonna say?
I was going to
'Cause
say,
I want to say something.
you just gave us, I love what you said. So, Lau, would you give us an example of what you're talking about live right now?
Sure.
So what would be cool
So
is I know you've got your headphones on so you can hear us, but if you even unplug them from your computer, so if we happen to talk or ooh and ah, you can hear us. And let's just groove. You do you want to say something before he does that, Phil?
say
Oh no, I'll save it for later.
Okay.
okay. So I'm gonna take them out. I will just tell you. So the song I'm gonna play um, was I wrote it while my wife was pregnant with our daughter. I played it every day, and I played it in the hospital in the lobby. She had it was a pretty traumatic delivery. It was like 30 hours. She ended up having a almost emergency C-section. So you can imagine my emotions were up, and there happened to be a piano at this is Verdugo Hills, USC Keck, Verdugo Hills Hospital, right up off the two. And it was like 2:30 in the morning, and finally there was like, okay, baby was there, like we're good, like everybody's safe, my wife's okay. And I went down and I played it, and I was never going to do it on the album. It is the last song on the new album. I was never going to do it. I always thought it was just a song for me. And then I played it for Chieli Minucci, who's a dear friend of all of ours and been in the band last summer. This was a couple months before the record, and he was like, dude, like that's a powerful tune. I was like, I just thought it was for me. And then I ended up doing it on the record. So being that we've talked about family, whatever, I thought it'd be a fitting thing to do. So it's called Lullaby, but it literally was never meant for the world. I played it every day because it was for me and for my wife and for my daughter, and I'll get choked up. So anyway,
Please, we're honored, truly.
Lao Tizer, everyone.
Hmm. Ah.
Oh,
Whoa.
that was beautiful.
What year? Ah.
Oh,
Mm,
brother. Thank you for
that was
sharing
beautiful,
that.
Lau.
Wow.
So
Wow,
gorgeous.
man.
Thank you. I
So
actually I
gorgeous.
haven't played it in a some months actually, so I probably should have played it before today.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh
who knew?
no.
Who
Oh
knew,
no.
man? All beautiful, brother.
Thank you.
What a lovely expression of love and tenderness and
Tender, perfect
togetherness.
film.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
We have flown through this hour.
That
I mean,
was
flew through
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Lau.
Flew.
So
Yes.
at the well, first look at all these comments. Just like Phil said, we've flown. That was beautiful. Thank you, Lau.
Thank you.
Mm.
Just gorgeous, beautiful, Lau. Thank you for sharing. Jamaica Sue says very smooth. Just
Thank you.
gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And before we leave, we always ask our guests, as well as we will, give us some words of wisdom. Share something with your audience, our audience right now of life. Doesn't have to be one word or two words.
Mm.
Share something with us, baby.
I mean, as it pertains to art and a career in art, especially, it's what I always say when like kids ask me or whatever. I would say, do it for the right reasons.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, do it for the right because it feeds you, and the rest
Mm.
will fall into place. Like, you can't don't do things because you're trying to become famous or trying to make a bunch of money or whatever. Like, do it for the right reasons. Be you. It's like what we talked about before. Be the best version of that you can be, and of course the same applies to just living your life, right? We're of course all frail, but or have our frailties, I should say. But yeah, be the best version of you that you can be, and do it for the right reasons, whatever it is that you're doing. And I think if you live that way, hopefully you can hold your head high and touch some people along the way. That's always a good
Come
thing.
on now. Come on. That's always a good thing.
That's so beautiful. Usually
You
you
want to
go,
go?
Phil. Yeah, I
You want?
sure will.
You seem like you're feeling something.
I'm gonna chime in on that. Wow. I'm gonna chime
Please.
in on that. Do it for the right reasons. When I first moved back to LA from New York, I was in New York for about 5 years. And I was complaining to a girlfriend in New York. I said, man, things aren't working, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, are you there to be a star? Are you there to be creative? And I had to think of, what are my intentions? And through that, and right now in this life, my intention is about, what can I bring joy to? What can I bring to others to inspire, to enlighten their lives, to better what they're going through, to give them something of me, my talent of writing poetry. Oh, people love my talent of walking in a room to be warm, to hold space for someone in the moment. A myriad of things I know that are mine. I'm not the only one who has it, but there are things that I uniquely have that I can share. Not looking for what comes back, but looking for what I can give that brings joy to others and makes a difference in other people's lives. I think that is the most beautiful gift we can give. And I hope that in this week, you get more connected to that beautiful gift that I know is uniquely yours.
You guys,
So,
absolutely
Mr.
beautiful.
Phil Morris.
Well, I'm just thrilled. This hour went faster than almost any hour that we've done because of the depth and the wealth of experience and knowledge and expression and creativity. What I want to talk about, though, in these final moments that we have, is what Lao spoke about when he was talking about why music is the great communicator. It hits your button, man. It hits your button. There's a resonance that is universal. that goes beyond words, that goes beyond intellect. It hits our internals in a way that you can't quantify, and that's why everybody relates to it. I was going to talk about I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not a Swiftie, but I'm not a Swiftie fan, right? And wasn't quite sure why she was hitting, And I'm leaving an experience, some situation. I'm leaving. I'm on the freeway, and a song comes on, and I'm just like grooving to it. And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, "This is Taylor Swift." I said, "I know why. She hits the button, man. She's
Right.
hitting a button on these people that I don't need to know, but they know it, and that's why they respond to it." And so here's my words to everybody: go beyond the words. Go into the resonance of your life. Go into the feeling of it, the truthful feeling. You'll know. You'll know. I just study martial arts and I do a lot. And I used to say to people, I don't study martial arts to hit people and kick people anymore. I study for the truth. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. What that means to me is that as I trained martial arts and I was getting better, I didn't get hit as much. And when I wasn't hit, I was in the truth. When I got hit, I wasn't in the truth. If I landed a hand on you or a foot on you, I was in the truth and you weren't in the truth. After decades of doing that, after millions of repetitions of being in the truth of that and out of the truth of that, when I would get to situations that were a little more elliptical, a little more conceptual, not as quantitative, I would try to use the feeling that I got in all of those millions of repetitions that I went through, that I could feel the truth in them. And I would use that as a barometer to feel the truth or lack thereof in this particular situation. Was the truth in it? Did I have the same feeling as when I was in the truth? No, it's not there. So it's not truthful for me. And that's how I was training the truth. It was just a physical manifestation of it. I'm sure Lao could speak to that. Iona can speak to it. You can speak to it. With whatever you're doing, when you're in that truth, you know that. There is no hard edge. There's no sharpness to it. There's a flow that's undeniable. And that's what I want in my life. And that's what I want people in my life to have, that flow. And if you fall down, that's still truthful. Because what's the next truth? Getting up. So just keep linking these truths together. Do not judge. Accept them and move through them with grace, gratitude, and love. And I promise you, you won't have that many problems because you'll find a lot of ways around it. So thank you, Lao, for hitting us with the commonality of music and its relevance to our experience as human beings. It really was very important for me. I loved hearing that.
Oh, thank you. And likewise, great thoughts, guys. And time flies when you have a good conversation. So
That's
there you
Right?
right.
go.
It's your fault.
And with
I've
that,
been.
and with that great conversation, this is where you can find all of us. Here's Lau. This is his information. This is his contact. So check him out, you guys. And this will be on YouTube, so you can come back and look again at everything. And here's Lao Tizer, the Lao Tizer Band. Okay, without the. There we go. Lau's such a great guest. And of course, Philip the Morris, the Phil Morris. This is where you can find him. And his partner in Beautiful Justice, his sister B. And our show, guys, The Vision is Possible. Koso, thank you. You're always the one to remind everyone to subscribe. You guys, tell your friends. We're building here on YouTube, and it's really exciting for us. So, Lau, we love you. Thank
Love you
for being
guys.
with us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you, brother. It was an honor, truly. Have a great week, everybody.
See you guys, and as usual, night Philly.
I don't know.